balanced state.
Well, you make a really good point because you're talking about acceptance, really. And that's where I think the strength of tapping, of EFT is, because we live in a world where the whole idea of positive affirmations is so popular. And with EFT, we're often asked, why do you focus on the negative so much? So in EFT, we have what's called a setup statement, which couples a recognition of the problem with a statement of self-acceptance. And then we repeat a reminder phrase while we tap through the points. And when we're doing the setup statement, you're acknowledging in the setup statement what the problem is. So, for example, let's say you're accessing the memory of falling off your tricycle and all the neighborhood kids laughing at you. You are saying, you maybe as you picture that, you still feel embarrassed or shamed. And so you might say, as you're tapping on the side of your hand, it used to be called the karate chop point. We're trying to change it to the side of the hand point for cultural sensitivity reasons, because apparently karate chop is kind of a Hollywood invented thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I'm glad to know that, because I've always referred to it as the karate chop point.
It's always been called that. It's just in the last couple of years that it's come to light that it actually is a bit insulting.
Good to know.
So you tap on the side of the hand point, and if anybody, I have a free manual that I can give out. If people come to my website, it's called OzFreedom, OZ, freedomtechniques.com. There's a free manual that you can get that explains how to do all of this and where the tapping points are. But it's pretty simple. You tap on the side of your hand and you say, even though I still feel this shame when I remember everybody pointing at me when I was lying on the sidewalk after I fell off my tricycle, I deeply and completely accept myself anyway. And you tap through the points with the reminder phrase, maybe the top of the head, this shame, eyebrow point, this shame, side of the eye, they're all looking at me, under the eye, this shame, under the nose, and so on. Now, you can, because you're focusing on the negative, let's give an example of the 12-year-old whose mother said, no one's ever going to love you. In that peeling the onion, you might have a layer that says, some swear word, her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything goes in tapping, because the language that you use is the language you would use in your own head or talking to your best friend on the phone. So you don't say things like, even though my inner child is wounded by what happened, I can completely accept myself. You say, even though she had no,
blank, blank, blank,
blank, blank, blank, right, to say that to me, and I am so angry, I deeply and completely accept myself. Now, a certain amount of pressure is just relieved, I think, just by acknowledging the emotion that you haven't previously acknowledged. And a lot of time with tapping, think of how we talk about expressing emotion. Think about the word express. Express means out as well as, sharing. And so emotion that you express while you're tapping is emotion that is leaving your body permanently. And maybe if you were to focus on that negative thought over and over without tapping, well, absolutely, studies have shown if you focus on something negative over and over and you're not tapping, you actually increase the neural pathways to that, and you actually kind of increase the anger, increase the sadness, and so on. So that's why people are nervous about it, and they're tempted very quickly with tapping to go to the positive really fast. So they say, even though I'm so angry at my mother for saying that to me when I was 12, I deeply and completely accept myself and I forgive her. And it's like, well, you've just kind of cut off your body's ability to actually express that the anger is there. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness will arrive. Forgiveness will arrive and arise naturally and organically as a result of the emotion, the anger being collapsed.
Yes. And I love your use of the word collapsed, because that is what it feels like. Whatever that emotion is, it's a structure, and it's holding up our own defenses and our ideas and our beliefs and the stories that we tell ourselves. And then when it collapses, we suddenly don't have that script to run anymore. And we have to say, oh, now what?
that actually brings up another secondary gain for people, because the results and the effects of tapping are so rapid. Our psyches just aren't prepared for change to come in that quickly. So usually there's this moment where you have been collapsing the intensity of something foundational to who you are, and then suddenly there's a fear from your ego or from your unconscious that goes, wait a second, who am I going to be without this? I've had this anger towards my dad since I was like my whole life. The psyche is kind of relaxing in the background, letting you do this tapping thing, and then suddenly goes, hang on a second, these changes are, whoa, I haven't been consulted. I didn't say my whole personality could change. So there's kind of a bit of a freak out there. And then you just tap on, even though I'm actually really scared to get rid of this anger because I don't know who I'll be without it, and so on. That's another kind of a stage that happens.
Yes.
And I lost my train of thought. There was another.
That's okay, because I'm going to jump in and then you jump in whenever you find that train of thought.
Okay.
That is one of the things that I think is so beautiful about EFT. In this world of positive affirmations and focusing on the positive, which, yay, I love being positive, but it also puts a different kind of pressure on us that we can't be real. I can't be messy, and I can't have a bad hair day, and my house can't be falling apart, and I can't be weepy for no reason, and I can't just be so stinking angry with my kids that I can't see straight. It puts that pressure on us that we have to keep covering that, and then it also creates guilt. Oh my gosh, I'm a horrible mother. I was mad at my kids. I'm a horrible mother. No. You're a human. And it's that layering that I appreciate about EFT. I can come in with what I might perceive as, whatever issue, a housekeeping issue, an anger issue, and then it moves into guilt, and then it moves into sadness. And we have the stages of grief because there's stages. Grief is not one thing. We don't have stages of other things, but we do. We just haven't layered them. No emotion really is just a single cut and dried thing. That would make it way too easy.
You're right. I've never thought of it that way before, that we have stages of other emotions, but you're exactly right. That's another way of describing not only the onion, where you go from anger to sadness, back to anger, to guilt, to shame, all around one thing that happened. I love that we have different stages of different emotions. It's a kaleidoscope. And Deepak Chopra talks about how we have to stop thinking of ourselves and our bodies as separate, distinct things, and start thinking of ourselves as systems, which allows for that kind of fluidity, allows for the change, allows for the way that all of those components interact organically with each other and change each other.
I love that, because earlier you mentioned allergies, and I am presuming that some listeners out there might be thinking, allergies and tapping, that's not an emotional thing, but it is a systemic thing. Our emotions and our bodies and our intellect, that we're all intertwined. And I'm sure listeners out there have had the experience, as I have, of you power through to get through a big project at work and then you get sick.
Oh, yeah.
We do let our guard down. That is a phrase that we have because it's true. We can power up and not get sick and not hurt. And then we can also let our guard down and then we become sick. And yes, that's emotional, and that's mind, body, spirit. And that's just something I wanted to jump in and clarify. It's not woo-woo magic. I'm going to fix my body and my allergies by tapping around. No. It's systemic, and we are all related, and we are interconnected, and it's true.
It's true. And you never know. This is what I love about tapping. It's client-led. So, EFT practitioners haven't been trained unless you're a psychologist, I guess. And I do train a lot of psychologists because increasingly psychologists are using this as a tool in their toolbox. What I do is, it's like I'm more like a detective, and I help the client to work out. It's like cracking a safe, So this allergy, let's find out if there is an emotional component to it. And if there is, let's find out what the events are that created this emotional component. And then let's go tap on those events. And with tapping, being specific, dealing with a specific event and dealing with the aspects. So How did you experience the event? What did you see? What did you hear, smell, feel, touch, taste, thought, think, etc., is very important in breaking those down and tapping on those individually, because that's kind of one of the major distinctions of clinical EFT. And I think that often what I am guessing, if I'm working with a client that shows up with something, and as we're progressing along, my brain starts going, oh, I bet I know what this goes back to. I bet this goes back to childhood abuse, for example, I might think. I am so glad that I am trained not to guess, because I am pretty smart and I'm wrong half the time.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, when we were talking about trauma, the individual, I just find people are such, the variety and individuality that we all have, our individual stories. It's just so fascinating, because two people with the exact same allergy, for example, it can go back to one person, it goes back to 3 or 4 things that happened over a summer when they were 12. Another person, it's goes back to a family belief, a belief about this is true in my family. We are all, lactose intolerant, or we are all addicted to sugar, or, whatever it is. And I just find that the way tapping works, we just work with what's coming up in the moment, and we just trace that back. We tap on it, and then the unconscious will offer up the next step, the next hint of like, now go here. It's like a treasure map that says, once you get, or what is it called? Is it like geocaching?
Geocaching. Yeah.
Geocaching. It's like geocaching. I've actually never used that analogy before, but so you get to the hollow log, and then you open up another one that says, and now go and find, the 3-branch tree, and sort of you go there. You might say to yourself, oh, I know where this is going to go. We're going to end up, down by the waterfall. And I think, well, chances are you won't. You'll end up somewhere you didn't even know existed. And for every person, it's a different journey.
Mm-hmm. And that, for me, was the distinction between doing it on my own and working with someone. You mentioned you have some free resources on your website. Mm-hmm. I would encourage everybody to download those, to read a little bit more about that, because it is something that you can do on your own. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your girlfriend gave you a manual and you just randomly started tapping. We can do it ourselves. But for me, the difference was having that guide and to ask the questions, and it allowed me to step out and then to honor what came up, because I too have got some strong cognitive abilities and I want to trace my own path, but where I think I'm going within myself and where it is going are different. So I found I was second guessing myself, and it's not that I wasn't being authentic, but I was overthinking it. And it wasn't until I had a guide to kind of say, what about? What's next? What's coming up? It freed me to then say things that didn't necessarily make any sense at all, but that's how the subconscious is structured. It's not linear or logical.
I love that you said that. That is such an important point. And I tell people the logic of the unconscious is not the logic of the conscious mind.
No.
And when you make a connection between something that's showing up now and something that happened before, you intuitively feel that connection makes sense, and you can tap and you can release and collapse whatever it is, while your conscious mind is going, what?
Right.
I never would have gotten to that. And people will sometimes be experiencing a lot of intense emotion while I'm working with them. And then they'll be sort of, through their tears, they'll be going, I thought I worked on this in 10 years of therapy. I don't know why I'm crying. And they're almost apologizing and they're questioning their 10 years of therapy. And I just say to them, look, you did really good work in therapy. You did a lot of really good cognitive work processing what all of this is. Now we're bringing your body to the party.
Right.
And another analogy that I like to give is I tell people that I see each individual client as a light bulb. That's a very bright light bulb that's covered in mud. And EFT is the process of scraping the mud off that light bulb. I used to think that the way it worked is that you did EFT or any modality, and then that cleared your barriers and your blocks. Now you can go and be and do your potential. And what I found is, actually,